Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scrum for Marketing, our first podcast. It should be interesting. My name is Dave West. I'm hosting today. I'm actually the CEO and product owner at Scrum.org, but I want to introduce two musketeers, would perhaps be the good way of describing that we've been working on and talking about Agile marketing. Dave Carmichael, he's from Avanade. I want to say hi, Dave.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name's Dave Carmichael. I work for a company called Avanade. We would be called a technology services provider, I think. I run global solutions and industry marketing at Avanade.
Great. And then the other person that's on the call is a gentleman called Simon Jones. He's an RD, Research Director, Analyst at Serious Decisions. I want to say hi, Simon.
Hi, not much else to say. You are absolutely right. I'm a research director at Serious Decisions, and if people aren't aware of what Serious Decisions are, we're a research and analyst organisation focusing on business to business, primarily in marketing, sales, and product.
That's great. Thanks, Simon. It's interesting. We've got three quite different. We've all got English accents, and I apologise for that for our international listeners. But there's three quite different points of view. We've got Dave from Avanade, who's actually a practicing marketeer, applying the ideas of Agile and the ideas of Scrum in his day-to-day life, as it were. We've got Simon, an analyst at and RD at Serious Decisions, who talked to hundreds, dare I say thousands of organizations doing marketing and trying to apply Agile to do some of those things. And then myself, the product owner and CEO at Scrum.org, who is obviously the sort of body, the home of Scrum training and certification all around the world. So you've sort of got these three different points of view. And that's why when we started talking about marketing many months ago, we were sort of interested what synergies, what stuff we could actually get out of this and start sharing some ideas. So I guess the first place we should begin is a little bit of context and experience. So Dave, I think we'll start with you. You're the practitioner doing it every day, as it were. Tell us a little bit about your experience of Agile marketing, how it all sort of came to pass.
Yeah, my responsibility at Avanade is, or part of it was about 4 or 5 years ago to help market our Agile capability in our company. So part of what we do is software development. Agile and Scrum is a big part of that practice. In the process of understanding how to effectively market that differentiator, I discussed with our then global Agile coach, as they are called, if this was something that we could apply to marketing. And he believed it was. Long story short, myself and a small number of people got trained on Agile. We tested it primarily against one of our marketing campaigns, and it was successful. And as a result of that, I took the training and became a certified professional Scrum Master. I did a few others, and we set up an Agile Marketing Centre of Excellence within Avanade. And over what was a 3-year period, we trained the whole of our organisation, and we now have 6 professional Scrum Masters in our organisation, and I've just recently become a professional Scrum product owner, and I think you can say that we've been practising Scrum marketing in anger for about 4 years now.
That's good. And why did you decide to do it? I mean, you're busy enough. You've got like 1,000 different customers all asking you to generate leads, build brand, net promoter score, etc. Why did you decide to do it?
To some extent, for that reason, there's this idea that and most marketers will sympathise with this, that you get up in the morning and you think about what you want to achieve during the day, and you set about the day with the best of intentions, and then you see your inbox and the IM start, and you end up in reactive mode, and you never feel that you feel that you never have the opportunity to get done what it is that you really want to do, and what it is you want to achieve for the business to move things forward. And I think I saw Agile as a real opportunity to focus on the things that we considered really drive business value. I saw Agile as an opportunity to provide a better focus in our work, and as we say with Scrum, to kind of accelerate the time to value of what we did as an organisation. I think it's also fair to say that we'd seen the impact of what Agile did for our clients as well, so we kind of wanted some of that for ourselves, if I'm fair.
Interesting. So Simon, you sit and talked to many organizations that are in different stages of their maturity. Obviously, I've been doing it for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your context and the experience that you've seen with Agile and marketing and the discipline.
Sure. I also stand and talk to clients on a regular basis as well. It's not always sitting down. I'm not completely sedentary. So I suppose my background in Agile comes from back in the late 1990s when I was building out an e-commerce experience as a marketing solution, actually, to a problem we were having in the company I was working with at the time. I didn't realize it was Agile as such, and it wasn't formalized Agile in terms of using a Scrum methodology, but it was just realizing that if I wanted to get something done properly with the right level of value and in a certain time frame, that getting a small group of people together focused on a single vision that we could go and deliver and kind of learn and try and iterate as we went along, that was the best way to do it. And 90 days later, we went from a PowerPoint presentation of what I thought it could be, and 90 days later we were launching what ended up to be around about a $17.5 million e-commerce platform in the first year. And ever since then, I've kind of been fascinated with the idea of applying those techniques into marketing. So when I left that organization, I did a bit of consulting, worked with a company in the City of London, and we applied a Scrum methodology to essentially building out their SOM, serviceable obtainable market. And we, in the space of 4 or 5 weeks, we ended up having a team that was entirely aligned, marketing and sales, on identifying what their SOM was going to be for their ABM programs. And we created their entire SOM by the end of it. So I knew it could be applied into marketing. And then I joined Serious Decisions, started speaking to clients, and a lot of clients are talking about it. There are some clients like David, like Elinard, who are doing it and have been doing it for a number of years. I've got a number of other clients that are doing it in different levels and stages. But there's this whole story going on, this whole, do I call it hype? Probably do call it hype around Agile for marketing, but there's not a huge amount of real detail, real how you can actually apply it operationally, how you can apply it strategically, how you can apply it. And that's where my interest is. I think there's a real opportunity for us to provide that clarity from our 3 different viewpoints.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately the motivation of this podcast series and anything that, materials that we end up creating, because I think you said it to me, Simon, that the Agile movement has been driven predominantly by software development professionals, right? I mean, I think the idea that you could actually plan a software project was, or plan in the infinite detail that people expected, was a sort of fallacy from day one. The Mythical Man Month is a classic seminal work on that, Fred Brooks. And since then, the software development community has been building out ideas, which has been called Agile, to effectively deal with that, Scrum being the most popular framework for organizing. And some of that means that there's a level of mysticism and, dare I say, softwareiness to the words, the phrases, the events, the stuff, right? Done increment. What the heck does that mean to a marketing team? So part of our motivation, and I think that this is what we were talking about, is to sort of lay bare some of the myths, try to provide some very practical ideas around how we can apply Scrum and Agile principles in a marketing context. And hopefully over the next few weeks, as we slowly build out some more of these podcasts and maybe some of the materials, we can share that and get some feedback. And as we say in Agile, inspect and adapt and learn as a community. So I guess we should start with probably the most important question. What the heck is Agile marketing anyway? Maybe we'll start with Dave. What is Agile marketing? How do you position it? Well, how do you describe it?
When we talk about it, we talk about the goal of it, which is to accelerate the time to value. But it's about increasing the transparency of what we do in marketing. Scrum uses the principles of empiricism, transparency, inspection, adaptation. And I think I don't try so much to describe Agile marketing itself. I try and describe what it means to us as a marketing organization. And it means that if we're more transparent in what we do, and we take an iterative approach to how we do things, and we provide transparency in that for people to inspect what we're doing, take feedback from them, release what we're doing effectively in inverted commas, to use the software vernacular, and get feedback on that so that we can improve what we do. That's ultimately what we describe what we're doing in agile marketing. And I'll say it now, we've seen benefits from that we didn't anticipate when we started the journey, in the sense that one of the challenges that we have with marketing when we're creating campaigns and we're creating messaging, creating stories, is buy-in from within our organization. And one of the byproducts of this process and of using Agile and Scrum in particular that we didn't anticipate when we started is the increased level of buy-in that we get, because we share our work, we provide that transparency at regular intervals, so a time box of 30 days or less, to our stakeholder group, and they give us feedback on it. And in doing that, what it's done is it's increased the level of buy-in within the organization at a much earlier stage in the cycle. So rather than going away, working with agencies, etc., coming back however many weeks or months later, presenting our new shiny thing, and then getting the feedback at that point, effectively when it's too late to do anything to change it. We're doing it at a regular state. As a consequence, we're almost sharing the ownership of what we're producing with other parts of the organization, with the subject matter experts in other parts of the organization. So when I think what is agile marketing to us, it's that framework, it's that ability to approach the work that you do in a way that is much more impactful, and ultimately creates much more buy-in for your organization. In doing so, you are generating value faster. And I believe, sincerely, that we generate more value as a consequence of what we do. So I'm not honestly sure if I've answered your question in the way that you asked it there, but I've given you the best answer that I can right now.
Well, let's be agile and sort of inspect and adapt and see where it takes us. Simon, you're a fancy analyst. What do you? How do you describe it when you're writing reports or sitting or standing presenting to clients?
So I think I'll just add on to what David has said. So I think when we look at it, on three levels. There's the organization and how you make an organization equipped for agile. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with a client just the other day, and we were talking about the budgeting in agile organizations, and the fact that traditionally in a marketing organization, you start off with your budget at the beginning of the year, and they're set out by quarter. At the end of each quarter, if you don't spend it, you lose it. But actually, when you talk about organizations working in a more agile manner, you have to loosen some of that up, and your budgets may change as you learn and decide what's going to change and what you're going to deliver and how that's going to work. So organizationally, there's the ability to set up an organization to work in an agile way. I suppose one thing I would include is these definitions of agile. And in my mind, I define agile as there's a set of agile methodologies like Scrum, which you apply to operationalize stuff. And then there's agility as an adjective. There's agile as an adjective, which is kind of more about how you think and how you set up your organization. So that top layer is the organizational one. How do you prepare an organization to work in an agile way? The middle layer is how do you then plan and prepare yourself throughout the year, and then the bottom layer is the operationalization. So at an operational level, you've got Scrum, and you feed stuff in and you get stuff out and you iterate and you go back. I know it's a lot more complex than that, but there's an input, there's work done in the middle, there's your retrospectives and your reviews and everything, and you get output at the other end. But one level above that, you've then got to plan that input to make sure it's delivered, and take that output and learn from it. So you've got to organize yourself so you can have your teams work in a collaborative way. You've got to be able to understand your work and your vision and convert those into those componentized elements of the backlog, so you can feed it in to the Scrum and have it developed. So that role of product manager becomes really important. Empirical learning, I think you've David, you said, hugely important. That iterative learning and understanding, really, really important. And then, as you say, transparency and back into the organization. So, we're still working through, and I think we've had this conversation between us, we're still kind of working through what those absolute definitions are. And we all went and searched for those definitions, and we've heard people give definitions, and there isn't a true definition. And I think, I hate to use the term, but as we're going through our little podcasty journey and our discussions outside of the podcast, it really is about defining those in more detail and putting the relevant frameworks around it at those three different levels: operational, planning, and then organizationally. That really says this is what we see with our knowledge of marketing, which is my side, our knowledge of Agile and Scrum, which is your side, Dave, and then the practical application of that, which is David, your side. Bringing those three together is what, and hopefully over the next 12 months or so, we will get to very heavily well-defined views of what it means at each of those levels.
Yeah, and because there are some, I think you sort of hit it on the head there, Simon, there are some really interesting challenges. You talked about planning. Ultimately, the most marketing, as you said, is planned in a sort of quarter by quarter basis. It's planned in a very traditional, dare I say, industrial way, whereas ultimately the planning model has to change to support more of a sort of, dare I say, more of an aligned to customer kind of problem, sort of aligned to customer sales opportunity, sort of a much more fluid way of planning. And some of those things that haven't been well thought through yet, we've got some experiments running, some experience. Every situation is slightly different. We can definitely share how we do it from a software and product perspective and see how that fits. So planning is a great example. Another great example that we talked a lot about is specialization of labor, and this sort of vision that traditional or old school marketing had, that you had this sort of factory of marketing where you've got people that write the story, people that write, the messaging, as it were, people that are really good at the tactics of Google AdWords, or, and you've got designers, you've got all these different specialists, and ultimately you have some magical marketing manager that manages to glue them together to deliver value. And what we find over and over again, I think Dave alluded to this when he was talking about the sort of challenge of focus, is you end up with like a billion spinning plates, and you end up not necessarily satisfying any of your customers, delivering value as you defined at the start. And ultimately, when things change, it's incredibly hard to realign all these people and all these groups in there. So specialization or roles or team formats is definitely another issue. How you measure value is another issue. Well, there's a multitude of things that we haven't necessarily in the product world done a good job of explaining, so it can be easily connected to marketing, and hopefully we will do that. So Dave, you talked a little bit about the motivation and the like. You talked at a very micro level for Avanade, the need for focus, the need to deliver more value, the need to basically get your customers, your organization on your side and get their input, therefore improve the ultimate product that you were delivering. But at a sort of macro level, why now? I mean, what's happening in the market, do you think, and Simon, obviously jump in here as well, that makes this different? And why should anybody care now?
Yeah, I mean, I picked up on your industrial approach comment. I think, as we know, certainly in this industry that I work in, and I think it's the same for the three of us, we recognise that the pace of change is accelerating. The idea of a campaign, having this planning process of months, before it responds to some opportunity in the market, for want of a better phrase, is frankly becoming laughable. Do you know what I mean? It's always frustrated me. There's an opportunity in the market, and by the time the opportunity to respond is very often days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let alone months. And when we get a new challenge now, we're able to quite quickly, going back to what is agile marketing, use the tools and the approaches that are available through Scrum, for example, to quickly pull together, a cross-functional team and very quickly agree, okay, what are we going to say? What are we going to say here? How are we going to respond to this? Okay, let's quickly agree what the things that we need to do to achieve this and make it happen. And it's that ability that we're noticing the step changing. And And it's the same for our clients. Our clients are consuming content in completely different ways than they used to in just a few years ago. And we have to be more, to use the phrase, agile to respond to that. So with Scrum, we kind of replan on a daily basis, and that enables you to, in a very small way. I don't want people listening to this thinking we go inside a room for 5 hours each day and do planning. We do it for 15 minutes. And it enables us to quickly bring in new inputs into how we need to adapt and change what we are doing to take advantage or to optimize, again, the value that we bring to the business, and to focus on delivering the value. And the value could be, the number of leads that we create, the thought leadership that we do, but something that is meaningful in terms of the value that we provide. And that also helps us, going back to the point I was making originally, focus more on the stuff that is important to marketing rather than, arguably the white noise of things that we see that we need to do and are being asked to do on a regular basis. So it also enables us to some extent manage the expectations of our stakeholders in terms of what we're working on. We can give transparency on what we are hoping to achieve in, for example, the next 2 weeks. And if somebody comes to us and say, it's really important that marketing does this, and we can say, okay, well, we have got our plan of how we're adding value over the next 2 weeks. Do you think what you're doing here should impact that plan? Or can we put you on our list, or what we call in Scrum terms, our product backlog, and, come back to you in terms of how we would address that in the next 2 week, what we would call sprint or work period. And that's kind of when we started doing that in our team, it kind of, made people stop in the tracks to them at some extent. But then we're transparent, so they could see the logic behind it, and it changed our working relationship with certain parts of the organization, because they start to trust that it's in a positive way. They see the trust element, and that trust builds within the organization and across the organization, in the sense that they have complete visibility into what you're doing. So it's hard for them not to trust the logic that you are presenting to them in terms of how you prioritize what you're doing. So it creates whole new ways of working that are very positive from my perspective.
Yeah, that's, I think, a couple of things. Firstly, for our listeners, so Scrum is a planning cycle, and Dave was alluding to the fact that the planning happens at the sprint, so every 2 weeks or whatever it is, but also at the daily, where we're very focused on replanning based on what the hell happened yesterday in the context of the sprint and the goal that we're focused on. That concept of continuously planning, this idea that we're not going from one pillar to post, but we're focused on something, however, as we see changes. And then making things transparent means that the trade-offs, it's a zero-sum game, eh? There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many dollars in the budget. You can have to make choices, and making that transparent to your stakeholders is crucial for that. So Simon, you obviously talk about the changes in the industry every day. What do you think? Why should people care about doing this now?
I think the first thing is I don't speak to very many, if any, marketeers that tell me they've got enough budget, enough resource, and enough time to deliver what they need to deliver, right? Yeah.
Well, really? There's not somebody with a golden goose in their house.
So they're always having to make compromises, and they're always having to change. And we hear a lot from marketers who will plan out their campaigns over a long period of time, and they'll plan and create everything up front, and then find that the market changes and they've wasted time and effort. So we hear a lot in the market, and we hear from prospects and occasionally from clients talking about wanting to apply Agile to improve the speed of speed of delivery. Other ones talk about productivity gains they could get, and other ones talk about Agile in a sense of, well, it means I don't necessarily have to plan anymore. And they're all components, but they're not Agile in itself. I've got my little names for them. So when I'm focusing completely just on speed, I call it Spagile. It's focusing on productivity gains, I call it Pragile. And when it's planning avoidance, which I think is one of the main ones, it's Plagile. And the reality is they're all components of it, but you have to do all of those things to really to really see the value. To David's point, yes, you have to be able to turn really quickly, and you have to have your quick planning cycles, and you have to take on board delivering new value. But at the same time, that only works, and certainly our research shows that only works when you've got sales, marketing, and product teams aligned in the same direction. That's when it works really well. That's when organizations start performing really in a very high performance environment, when those three are aligned around that common vision and that common focus of where they're going. So I look at it in terms of, at that higher level, the benefits to marketing organizations is moving away from the treadmill of, we've got to do this, we're missing our dates, we're not able to go back and understand what's working and what's not working, we're not able to get teams together to work effectively to deliver these very complex campaigns, because you've got online, you've got offline, you've got inbound, you've got outbound, you've got numerous social channels. The average buyer, and we've got to remember this is kind of where we're focusing. This is all around a buyer, right? And their needs. They've got 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 different steps they will take from when they first realize they've got a need to when they fulfill that need with somebody. And that's a very complex environment to work on. And you can't build that with limited resources and execute that effectively without applying Agile techniques, not properly. The world is too complex. There are too many variables. So you need to be more adaptive. You need to apply Agile to keep sane to a certain extent as a marketeer in 2019.
Yeah, yes, we are in 2019. Isn't that the year that Blade Runner was set? So I'm just waiting for replicants, but it doesn't seem to have happened yet. What's interesting, though, you talked about a couple of things. Well, I've got a question. The buying cycles, because, Dave, you sell to businesses. Avanad does not have, doesn't sell consumer products. You are definitely selling to businesses. And Simon, obviously, many of your customers are selling to businesses as well. So the buying cycle, has that changed? People, it used to be, I just remember my gran was a school secretary, and I just remember that she used to do this big order once a year for every product that they needed for the school. Complete disaster, by the way. They had to end up buying glue and paint during the year if they had a particularly aggressive art teacher. So didn't ever work. But I remember that single cycle of buying, and I used to go in over my school halls and help her put these thousands of tins of paint and glue and sellotape away, blue tack. I used to steal some of that, actually, don't tell her. And, there was this, absolute annual cycle of spend. Has that changed? Have customers changed their engagement with companies like you guys?
Gosh, I think the one thing I was going to ask, when your gran was doing that, did you have one of those machines at the school that used to be the copying machines before photocopiers came in, that had huge amounts of solvents?
Oh yes, we had one of those. Yeah, it was fabulous. You get very messy with it very quickly, but that was
absolutely wonderful. Gosh, I remember those as well. I think there has been some change, but I think fundamentally the biggest difference is we've been able to understand that change more. I think certainly when you look at B2B buying, it's all about groups of buyers. It's about committees of people, and those buying committees, those buying groups come in at different times, and they have different needs, and you need to address those different needs. If you look at salespeople in B2B, when they talk about opportunities, their opportunities contain multiple people. I think from marketing, we've started understanding and getting the detail that says this is quite complex. We've started getting technology now that allows us to see further into the distance, right to the beginning of some of those buying journeys that the individual buyers and buyers group are taking. So we're getting more information, which gives us, to a certain extent, if we can process information, clearer abilities to go and act upon them and do something. And it's shifting as well. We didn't have social kind of 15 years ago. We didn't have e-commerce 25 years ago. We didn't have the modern internet. 30th anniversary this year. So
yeah.
if you look at this in terms of, engineering's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it's evolved quite well. Marketing, we're still pretty early days, and certainly when you talk about digital within that, we're very, very early days. So if something's shifting beneath your feet, which you've got to manage, and it's your job, your role, your purpose to do that, you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be agile to be able to work in that environment.
That's a very interesting point of view. Now, I know we tried to keep this to a sort of 30 minutes sort of later, and this is the start of a series. I think Dave and Simon have both said we're going to try to at least position some of the problems. For instance, I think next we're going to probably talk a little bit about the Agile operating model, a little bit of the model that Simon talked about, that idea that how do you structure, how do you align? And Dave will obviously share how they're aligned at Avanade, these campaign teams and the composition. How does that fit in with the cycle of, sort of delivery cycle and et cetera. Then we'll probably move on to a little bit about breaking that down into roles and understanding who's doing what, and then the events. How do we get those planning cycles, those delivery cycles, that information, that feedback loop in, and then how does that manifest in terms of dashboards, artifacts, reports, dare I say? How does that then drive into planning, and how does it ultimately deal with that conflict between no release, no big campaign release date, you end up incrementally releasing stuff? How does that work? And then I guess interfacing with the rest of the organization and the like. I know, Dave, Simon, any sort of final words as we finish off this podcast today?
I mean, I've enjoyed it. I'd say that. I think there's we
can't do that again, then, can we, Dave?
That rules that out. Yeah, I think this is. I think it's a really important topic for marketing. I think marketing is, and it needs to go through some sort of, I'll use the overused phrase, transformation. That all the businesses that we sell to, or that we know, that we interact with, are going through. It's a necessary part of evolution if you want to survive, I think, and without being over dramatic. It's a very important topic, and I think as we started off, we see lots of, to use the phrase, hype in the market around agile marketing. And I think it's important that we have these kinds of debates and conversations to really eke out and discuss properly what it means. And I would like to see not just us doing that, but the marketing professionals around the world, and the companies like Serious Decisions, and the involvement from organisations like Scrum as well, helping with that and getting involved with that. I think it's a very important topic.
Oh, so I totally agree. I think ultimately, if we can get marketing doing a better job, then the waste focus, people will make better decisions, products will get built better. I think it's all goodness in the world. But then I tend to be a half full kind of guy. Simon, what do you any parting words as we finish off today's podcast?
I think the only additional thing, and this was one of our light bulb moments. Oh gosh, I can't remember how many weeks or months ago that we had with these two fundamental immediate needs when you put the words agile and marketing together. And one of those is what we're kind of talking about, and what we're probably going to talk about in the next couple of podcasts, which is how do you apply agility into marketing. But the other one that I think is an interesting one is how does marketing cope with agility coming out of product teams, and they're two sides of the same coin. And I think it's going to be interesting to take both of those. I suppose the one thing I would kind of add, in typical agile fashion, if anybody does listen to this, or however many people listen to this, if anybody's got ideas of where they would like us to go, like us to talk about, I think we'd be open to taking requests in for future podcasts as well. Add that to our backlog.
Definitely. In fact, if you want to even come to this and sort of share your experiences, and we'll sort of a bunch of old gits go, well, that's very. I was thinking Last of the Summer Wine for a moment. Then it's a UK show. Obviously, nobody around the world have watched it. Yes. Very few people in the UK have either. But
but we all did. Yeah.
Yes, the sort of random people. But we'd love to hear your points of view. This is an emerging set of disciplines and ideas, and we have got not all the answers. I've seen Agile definitely change the world with respect to product delivery. I'd love to see it change how we respond to customers' needs and better educate, inform, and deliver value to customers as well. So that's my motivation of being here. Anyway, I'm going to conclude today's podcast. Hopefully this has been enjoyable. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Simon. Next is going to be the Agile operating model. Thanks, everybody. My name's Dave West. Thank you and goodbye.
This podcast is copyright of Avanade, the leading provider of innovative digital and cloud services, business solutions, and design-led experiences.